Ethan gazed at Lily with a curious expression, mimicking the way he had seen men look at women on television. "Lily, please," he whispered with a soft tone. "Can we do that thing again? The one the man and woman did in the video? I like it. It feels nice." Tears filled Lily's innocent eyes as she shook her head vigorously, her voice trembling. "No, Ethan, I can't. It hurts too much. I never want to do it again. Not ever in my life." You might be wondering, how did these young children find themselves in such a troubling situation? Why would Ethan, at just 9 years old, ask something so incomprehensible of his 7-year-old sister? And where were their parents in all of this? Stay with us as we delve into the tragic and opening story of Ethan and Lily. 9-year-old Ethan and 7-year-old Lily were often left to fend for themselves at home. Their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, were committed professionals, frequently working long hours to provide for their family. While their dedication to their careers was meant to secure a better future for their children, it unintentionally left Ethan and Lily isolated. The siblings became accustomed to being alone, though it was far from enjoyable. They tried to keep themselves busy with simple activities like coloring or playing board games, but their most consistent companion was the television. One evening, the siblings sat in the dimly lit living room, searching for something to pass the time. Ethan flipped through the channels until a bright, flashy program caught his attention. The screen lit up with vivid colors, pulsating music, and adults laughing in a way that felt strangely unfamiliar. Intrigued, Ethan called out, "Lily, come quick. Look at this." Hearing her brother's excited voice, Lily hurried into the room and plopped down beside him on the couch. Their eyes were glued to the screen, captivated by the vibrant images and lively energy of the show. The two siblings sat in silence, unable to comprehend much of what they were seeing but inexplicably drawn to it. "Why are they doing that?" Lily asked innocently, her small face scrunching in confusion. "I don't know," Ethan replied, his tone equally unsure. "Maybe it's something fun that grown-ups do." The scenes continued to play, their pace quick and filled with content that was far too complex and inappropriate for young minds. Unbeknownst to Ethan and Lily, they had stumbled upon a world they weren't ready to navigate. Days turned into weeks, but the images from that late-night show lingered in their thoughts. The curiosity sparked by what they had seen began to grow, planting seeds of questions they didn't know how to articulate. One afternoon, while their parents were at work, Ethan turned to Lily with a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Do you remember that show we watched the other night?" he asked quietly, his voice tinged with excitement. Lily hesitated. The memory of the show's unsettling scenes made her feel uneasy. "I don't know, Ethan. It felt strange," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, however, had already made up his mind. "Let's try it," he suggested with a playful grin, unaware of the gravity of his words. To him, it was just another silly game, a chance to mimic what he'd seen on television. Lily's face tensed, her instincts warning her that something wasn't right. "Mom said we shouldn't copy things we see on TV," she reminded him, hoping to dissuade her brother. But Ethan persisted, his tone insistent. "Come on, Lily, it's just pretend. No one will know." His words weighed heavily on Lily, who felt trapped by his persistence. "But Ethan," she began, only for him to cut her off. "Remember that time you went outside even though Mom and Dad told us not to? No one found out. But if you don't do this with me, I'll tell Dad." Feeling cornered and unsure of what else to do, Lily reluctantly agreed. Her small voice trembled as she whispered, "Okay, Ethan, let's do it." What started as innocent curiosity soon spiraled into something neither of them could understand. As Ethan led Lily into the bedroom, their usual laughter and excitement were replaced with a heavy tension that neither of them knew how to navigate. For Lily, the experience was excruciating, both physically and emotionally. She screamed in pain, pushing her brother away and running to the living room. "This isn't fun, Ethan. I never want to do this again," she cried, clutching her small frame as tears streamed down her face. Ethan, confused and oblivious to the harm caused, didn't understand why Lily was so upset. His innocence had been tainted, though he didn't yet grasp the magnitude of what had occurred. To him, it was just another game gone wrong. For Lily, however, the experience was far more than a game. The pain lingered, along with a sense of dread she couldn't shake. Each day that followed was filled with fear and sadness. She watched as Ethan became more insistent, his behavior shifting in ways that made her feel even more uneasy. The bond they once shared, filled with love, trust, and childlike wonder, had been fractured. One afternoon, as their mother briefly returned home to grab some documents, Lily saw a glimmer of hope. She approached Mrs. Carter hesitantly, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mom," she said softly, her voice trembling, "can I talk to you?" Mrs. Carter barely glanced up from her phone, her mind consumed by work and deadlines. "Not now, Lily," she replied dismissively, flipping through papers while juggling phone calls. Later, darling. Be a good girl, okay? Lily stood frozen for a moment, tears threatening to spill as she watched her mother disappear out the door again. Her tiny voice, full of desperation, faded into the background, swallowed by the chaos of her mother's busy life. She retreated to her room, feeling invisible and abandoned in the very place that was meant to protect her. As the silence of the house enveloped her, Lily's heart ached with a pain far deeper than she could understand. All she wanted was for someone to hear her cries, to acknowledge the weight of her suffering. But in a world consumed by noise, her voice remained unheard. Lily could no longer bear the weight of her fear and confusion. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she fled the house, her small body trembling as she ran. She didn't know where to go, but her instincts guided her to a safe place, the home of their kind neighbor, Aunt Grace. As Lily stood on the doorstep, clutching her tiny hands together, the door opened to reveal Aunt Grace's warm and concerned face. "What's wrong, Lily?" Aunt Grace asked, kneeling to meet her at eye level. Her gentle voice broke through Lily's trembling silence. Overwhelmed, Lily burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably as the words spilled out of her. She recounted Ethan's unsettling request, the lingering fear and the confusion that had taken root in her heart. Aunt Grace listened intently, wrapping Lily in a comforting hug. "You were brave to tell me," she whispered, her tone soft yet reassuring. "You don't have to face this alone. I'm here for you, and together we'll figure this out." Lily clung to Aunt Grace, feeling a small sense of relief for the first time. The heavy burden on her tiny shoulders felt slightly lighter. "I'm scared," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. "What should I do, Auntie?" Aunt Grace offered a gentle smile, brushing away Lily's tears with her thumb. "Don't worry, my dear. You're safe now, and I'll make sure to help you through this." Her words wrapped around Lily like a blanket of protection, giving her the strength she desperately needed. When Aunt Grace informed Ethan and Lily's parents, their initial reaction was disbelief. Mr. Carter frowned deeply, shaking his head. "Ethan wouldn't do something like that," he said firmly, his tone laced with denial. "They must have misunderstood what they saw." Mrs. Carter, visibly uncomfortable, tried to minimize the gravity of the situation. "It's probably not as bad as it sounds," she murmured, attempting to explain it away. But Aunt Grace stood her ground, her voice steady and full of conviction. "Children absorb what they see, and if they're exposed to the wrong things, they'll make sense of it the only way they know how. You've been so focused on your careers that you've overlooked what your kids are watching. This is a wake-up call." Her words struck a chord. Mr. and Mrs. Carter exchanged a silent glance, the weight of their negligence sinking in. They hadn't meant to put their children in harm's way, but their absence had left Ethan and Lily vulnerable to influences they hadn't even considered. Determined to make things right, the Carters took immediate action. They began by closely monitoring their children's screen time, ensuring they only had access to age-appropriate content. They also made a conscious effort to talk openly with Ethan and Lily about what they watched, encouraging them to express their thoughts and feelings without fear. Recognizing the need for professional guidance, Mr. Carter arranged for both Ethan and Lily to meet with a counselor. The sessions provided the children with a safe space to process their emotions and helped them begin the journey toward healing. At home, the Carters prioritized spending quality time together. Mrs. Carter started reading bedtime stories to Ethan and Lily, creating moments of warmth and connection. Mr. Carter, who had always been preoccupied with work, began organizing family game nights and outdoor activities. Gradually, the laughter returned to their home, rekindling the bond that had been strained by neglect. Months passed, and the Carters transformed into a more attentive and present family. Mrs. Carter decided to reduce her work hours, making her family her top priority. Mr. Carter, too, shifted his focus, dedicating weekends to meaningful time with Ethan and Lily. Under this newfound love and care, the children began to thrive. They felt safer, more confident, and reassured that their voices mattered. One evening, as the family gathered around the dining table for a game of Scrabble, Lily looked up at her parents with a thoughtful expression. "Thank you for listening to me now," she said softly. Her simple words carried profound meaning, bringing tears to Mrs. Carter's eyes. In that moment, the family realized the true importance of being present for one another. The greatest gift they could give wasn't material. It was their attention, love, and unwavering support. This marks the end of the story of Ethan and Lily. But the lesson remains clear. The most valuable gift we can offer our children is our time and love. Children need to feel seen, heard, and understood, especially when they're trying to share something important. Change begins with listening to their voices. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more meaningful stories. Have you ever experienced a time when your voice wasn't heard as a child? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and cherish the moments that truly matter. Goodbye.